Good evening. I'd like to acknowledge the local custodians of the land in which we meet this evening and honour elders past, present and emerging. I'm Mel Wilkinson from the education team at the Hunter New England Central Coast Primary Health Network. Welcome. Just a bit of housekeeping for this evening. A reminder that this is being recorded and it will be available on our website over the coming days. If you could please remain on mute. And if you have any questions, please pop them into the question box, so we'll endeavour to get to those at the end of the session. There will be a survey as usual, and we do value your input. It'd be amazing if you could complete that. We use that to help us decide and to work out further education events. So we really value that input, and I strongly encourage you to complete that. That would be wonderful. So online tonight, I have with me the lovely Erica Giroux, who's our Acting Central Coast Health Pathways Manager. Welcome, Erica. And Simon Matthews, the CEO of Well Coaching Australia and Singapore. So welcome to you, Simon, as well. I'm going to question, we're going to start off now with Erica's presentation. So I'll hand over to you, Erica. Thanks, Erica.
Thanks, Mel. Okay, is my presentation showing okay there, Mel?
Yes, yep, looks great.
Excellent. Okay, thanks everyone. Apologies for my throat. I've just recovered from a cold at the end of last week, so I've still got a bit of a croaky throat, so apologies for my voice. So I'm going to cover today the PHN support that we have for you regarding wellbeing and resilience. So we've had a really good response to this event, so thank you for joining us, and hopefully this might inform you a bit on a little bit more information about the support that we can provide you, particularly in primary care. Okay, so currently we have general practice wellbeing grants available. So there's some detail there about what those are. So those are available for general practices, and they're so that you can apply for a $200 one-off small grant to support activities that you can run in your practice for all your staff to support social connectedness, wellness and resilience. So some examples of the sorts of activities that some practices are doing are sort of morning and afternoon teas for social connection and to recognise the staff and all of their contributions over the last 18 months. Things such as physical activities like yoga, tai chi or surfing lessons, a team movie night, or a team dinner, and things such as hiring a guest speaker such as Simon to talk about specific wellness and wellbeing initiatives and activities. So the web link is there for you. These slides will be available up on the PHN website over the coming days. So you can go to that web link and apply for a grant, and those will close on the 30th of May. So we encourage you to apply for those if your practice hasn't yet applied. Okay, so as well, we are continuing on funding for the Member Assistance Program, also known as MAP. So this is similar to an employee assistance program, but the PHN is funding this for our stakeholder members. So general practices and allied health practices, staff who work at those practices in our region, which is Hunter, New England and Central Coast region. So staff from practices can access 3 free counselling sessions, including via telehealth, and those are for things such as personal concerns, family or work-related concerns, anything which is impacting the health or mental health of staff, and it can be both professional or personal, and can be assisted through a psychologist providing counselling for that person. So the way to access that through our program is to phone the 1800 number which is listed there, advise them which practice you're from and that you're accessing the HNECC account as we are funding that, and confidentiality is assured. There's also a link there in the slides which goes to a brochure with a bit more detailed information. But that's been extended on. We've had that available during COVID, and we're extending that from now on as well for a period of time to support the wellbeing of our stakeholders. So that's available now. Continuing on. All right, another component that we're supporting practices with is celebrating and recognising the successes of primary care practices and how you've managed COVID and continue to manage the phases as we're moving through the vaccine rollout and moving towards recovery from COVID. So we currently have expressions of interest open to be a presenter, so that can be individuals or practices or organisations as a whole, and we're inviting primary care providers, including allied health, and also aged care providers, Aboriginal medical services, and any of the commissioned services providers that we commission. So it's quite well open to all of our stakeholders, and we would welcome some submissions about, I guess, recognising you for the successes that you've had in managing COVID and also celebrating innovations. So the link there is to our People Bank page specifically for the COVID Showcase event, and we would welcome submissions. That's open this week until 9 AM Monday next week, and we would love you to share your stories and present at the Showcase. The Showcase event is going to be on the 26th and 27th of May, and it will be a combination of a virtual and in-person event. And following the Showcase event, we also have the Primary Care Quality and Innovation Awards. So this is the first year that we've run that locally from the PHN. So submissions are also open for the Quality Awards. So we've got a People Bank page as well for the Primary Care Awards. So that's the link there, and we would welcome nominations for successful initiatives and innovations, and the winners will be selected and there'll be a dinner awards event. Okay, so on to health pathways. Excuse me. So we've got our Central Coast Health Pathways website and our Hunter New England Health Pathways website, and we've got some pathways which are particularly relevant to this topic. So we've got a medical practitioner's health pathway, which is particularly for GPs who are looking after other medical practitioners and how to support them with their health and well-being, both physical and mental health and well-being. We've got a mental health helplines page, so that's a referral page with links to various different mental health helplines that are available. We have a page that covers the online therapy that it's available, so online cognitive behavioural therapy programs, that there's quite a large number of those available now. And then we've also got the community mental health support pages. So those are more so the non-government organisations who provide social and mental health support services in both of our regions. So those are sort of the relevant clinical and referral pages on both Health Pathways websites. So those are linked in the slides, or you can also just enter into the websites and search for those page names. And lastly, we've also got resources on our patient info website. So this is for the community, so consumers, patients and the community. Those websites are open access, so anybody can access those, both Central Coast Patient Info and Hunter New England Patient Info. And we have relevant pages on those as well. So we have COVID-19 mental health supports page. We have a whole section on mental health, so that has a number of sub-pages on mental health related resources, and also a section on keeping healthy and preventive care. So there's a number of pages as well on maintaining health and preventive care. So thank you very much for your time regarding my presentation, and I'll hand back over to Mel and she will hand on to Simon.
Thanks, Erica. I'll just remind everyone before we go into the main presentation, if you could grab your devices and pop menti.com.au into them. There'll be a bit of an interactive component in the next section. So I'll hand over now to Simon. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you, Mel. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. As you grab your devices, you can see the address up the top of the page there, not .au, just menti.com. If you use the code that you can see there, an 8-digit code, you will find yourself looking at the very presentation that we're all engaged in right now. So thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it. I believe my bio is somewhere available for you to see, so I'm not going to spend time describing that, other than to say that I'm here on the Central Coast. Actually, I'm not here on the Central Coast right now. I'm in Lithgow, but normally I'm on the Central Coast. I'm the CEO of Well Coaches Australia and Singapore School of Health Coaching. I'm a psychologist by profession, and you'll see in my bio I do a number of other things related generally to mental health and wellbeing, resilience, health behaviour change, and so on. So it's lovely to be with you and to have this opportunity this evening. So the first thing I would love you to do right now is just type a word or two in response to this question via menti.com. How are you feeling in this moment? So just make that brief connection with yourself right now, and type your response into your Menti page, and you'll see it come up. Yeah, tired. Tired, flat, yes. And it's the start of the week and early in the year, isn't it? And this is what we're seeing. So the first thing I'm going to say is that I appreciate that so many of you, even though you're feeling some of these things here, tired, overwhelmed, fatigued, and flat, still took the time to join this evening. I appreciate that. Great also to see, there's some breadth there as well. Some of you feeling energised, some of you feeling good, and of course, at any one time we find a spread of reactions like that. So we are talking about resilience, and it's easy to point the finger at particular things that are going on in our daily lives, and of course everyone's pointing the finger at COVID at the moment, and frankly we're all pretty over it. But it's not COVID, it's us. We're tired of it, and we want that breakup. But what we need to do is then think about, if we go through life always pointing the finger at someone or something else as the cause for our fatigue or flatness or feeling overwhelmed, then it makes it difficult for us ever to get on top of that. So although we can very much, if you in one way point the finger at COVID, we don't necessarily want to say that COVID has decreased our own resilience. It's just reminded us that we have to build up our own resources and stores ourselves to be able to keep going. And so this evening, there's three things that I want to land with you. First of all, what does resilience mean to you? What comes to mind when you think about resilience? Secondly, what are the signs of declining resilience? And then thirdly, how can you personally know when your own resilience is down? And so I want you to be able to make a connection with the particular indicators for you I do want to touch briefly on this idea here, the late stage indicators or the critical warning signs. So what are the things that tell us that not only has our resilience declined, but it's really hit a very low ebb, and as a consequence, we need to take some significant steps towards improving that. But most of all, I want to begin with this idea that resilience needs a why. And I've been, I mentioned I'm a psychologist. I've been training in resilience for, I'm going to say 15 years. I've been delivering training around the topic of resilience. And one of the things that's become most important to me over that time is the idea that if we simply say we need to develop resilience, or we need to be more resilient, we're only answering really a small part of what needs to be answered. Most of what we need to answer is actually that why. It's one thing to be resilient, one thing to develop resilience, but why do you want it? Why do you want to be more resilient? What difference will increased resilience make to you in your life? What would you be able to do, for example, if you had more resilience in your life, or you felt there was an increase in your resilience? What would you be able to do? How would you be able to do that in a way that you can't currently? When we start to ask those questions, we start to get to the why of resilience. And of course, this is true in health behaviour change, and it's true in the development of any particular skill or attribute that we want, or characteristic. If we don't answer the question, why does that matter to me, then we never become fully invested in the change. So getting to that why, that's going to be different for every one of us here this evening, is very important. And what I would love you to do right now is to take a moment to just share something brief about your why. Connect with that for yourself for a moment. Why does resilience matter to me? What will I be able to do in a different way if I'm feeling more resilient? How will increased resilience help me in my life? So I can see, thank you, I'm feeling less stressed. So I'm going to, for the person who shared that, I'm going to encourage you to ask that question again. So if I'm feeling less stressed, what will I be able to do then? How will being less stressed help me? Lead my team better. I love that. Thank you. To be able to enjoy what I do. Yeah, absolutely. The development of resilience is one of those things that that when we get a hold of it, often means that we end up more fully engaging in everything that we can offer life, and also everything that life can offer us. Few of you there really capturing that sense of enjoyment, re-engaging with the joy of life, and the passion that can come from feeling an increase in resilience, and also that outward-looking perspective too. And this of course is true of all of us, that we can develop attributes for ourselves that mean that we feel internally different, but also so that we can do things differently for the benefit of others. And leading my team better is a clear example of that. Being able to do something that benefits other people more effectively. In order to develop resilience, to increase our own resilience, I want to introduce you to an acronym. And there's kind of a spoiler here. I've shared the acronym with you already, but I want you to capture it right now, and then we're going to dig into it and explore and understand what this means. So we're really going to answer the question this evening of what it means to be a hero, what it means to be a hero in your daily life. Quite delightfully, HERO happens to be the acronym for the 4 elements that we know contribute to an increase in our overall, what's called psychological capital. And psychological capital is just like any sort of capital. Your financial capital represents the pool of resources that you have available to you to do the things that you want to do. Buy a house, buy a car, buy a boat, go on a holiday, refurnish your house, repaint, whatever it might be. Your social capital is the pool of capital that enables you to interact with others, to give yourself, to be fully yourself in relationship with others. Your psychological capital is the pool of resources that enables you to manage everything that life throws at you. And so what we'll see tonight is that resilience fits into psychological capital. No prizes for guessing where in the acronym that is, but we're going to start with the H and understand what that is. So that stands for hope, and hope is the ability to achieve goals and to motivate ourselves to get there. So you can see it has two components. There's a skill or ability component to hope. There's also a motivational component to hope, and both of those things need to be working well for us. And one thing I will say at this point too is that as we move through this acronym, one of the things that you will see is that there are ways, there are methods that we can employ to build up every one of these things. So it's important to understand right up front that when we talk about, for example, hope is not something that you either have or don't have. It's not something that when things are going well, you feel more of, and when things aren't going well, you feel less of. Hope is something that we can literally build in ourselves. And I'm going to show you some evidence-based ways for how we can do that. The E stands for efficacy, which of course is having the skill and influence over a situation to perform a specific behaviour. So efficacy, very importantly, is related to specific skills. It's not a general kind of concept. That's more in line with esteem, and sometimes we talk about self-esteem as well. But when we're talking about efficacy or self-efficacy, we're really talking about your feeling of being able to do and achieve a particular thing that has meaning and importance to you. The R, of course, I've already given that away, is resilience, the capacity to recover from difficulties and continue to make progress. So you can see again the two dimensions of that, the recovery dimension, but also the push-on dimension. Resilience, importantly, doesn't say keep pushing on even when you're badly injured. It says take time to recover first, then move forward. And then finally, O for optimism, which is developing confidence in an unknown future. Which future is unknown for us? Well, every future. All our futures are unknown. Sometimes we think that we know or understand what the future might hold, but in fact we don't. So futures are unknown for all of us all the time. So hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. And of course, everybody says, well, yeah, that's great. We all want to be heroes, but what do I have to do to get there and be one? So that's what we're going to spend some time digging into now. How you can walk away this evening knowing what you can do specifically to start building your own pool of psychological capital, your own resources, the tools that you can apply to situations in everyday life. I should have, I meant to say earlier too, there are options in Menti to ask questions along the way. So if a question comes to mind, you can either use the GoToWebinar chat, and I believe Mel is curating that, or you can use the Menti question box. If you're on a mobile device, you'll probably have to just flick your screen up a little bit to display the question box. But please feel free to type in a question anytime it comes to mind, and I'll see those come up on my screen. So let's have a bit of a look here at ways we can start to build hope in our own lives. The best strategy is to picture your best self. Picture yourself when you're at your finest, when you're doing things in the best way you can with the resources that you have. Now, best self is important because best is context dependent. So our best self in one set of circumstances may be different from our best self in another set of circumstances. Part of the process of developing hope is to take time to picture our best selves. And the reason that that works well is because our tendency when we're starting to feel battered and flat and overwhelmed and tired and fatigued is that we tend to do the opposite. We don't tend to picture our best selves at that time. We tend to focus actually on things that aren't going well. We tend to focus on how frustrated we are, how tired we are, how flat we feel. We start to wonder whether we can ever pull ourselves out of this in any way at all. And so taking the time to stop and picture yourself when you're doing the best that you can with what you have is the first step to starting to build hope. And this is not just nice thinking or someone's cute idea about what we can do to build hope. There's some very good evidence that sits behind picturing your best self and picturing yourself overcoming obstacles and challenges along the way. So this is a piece of research from just a few years ago, and essentially the researchers did this. They asked a group of high school students preparing for the PSAT, which is the preliminary standardized test, a very high stakes exam in the US, to complete it's high stakes because it determines what your future educational opportunities are upon leaving school. So they asked them to complete a 30-minute written intervention that involved mental contrasting. And the mental contrasting was vividly imagining a goal. In other words, getting that idea in themselves of the best thing that they could, where they want to be, when things are going really, really well. What does that look like to them? Then they asked them to write down possible obstacles to that. And then they asked them to come up with what they called implementation intentions, which are essentially if-then contingency plans. So if this obstacle happens, then I will do that. If this obstacle happens, then I will do that. So they were doing three things. They were coming up with that vision, that goal, that picture of them, their best selves. Then they were identifying possible obstacles, and then they were formulating contingencies to that. And this is what emerged in that research. The students who underwent the intervention completed more than 60% more practice questions on that standardized test compared to a placebo control group who were instead simply asked to write about an influential person or event in their life. So still a positive intervention, if you like. Having someone reflect on an influential person in your life, for most people, is positive. But the positivity wasn't enough. It was the problem-solving attribute of this. It was the creation of the best goal, the ideal goal, the thing that I'm really working towards, and then deliberately coming up with plans to deal with obstacles that might get in the way. That was found to have a significant impact on their behavioural outcomes directly afterwards. So that tells us something very, very important about what we can do. Here's some other things that have emerged in the research. I won't. I'm going to jump straight to the what did they find? But you can see here that these are studies focused on hope and outcomes like depression and anxiety, and in this one, academic achievement. And this one's fascinating. Hope uniquely predicts objective academic achievement above all these other things, above intelligence, above personality, above previous academic achievement. The best predictor, in fact, is hope. So how can hope help you? Sorry, just jumped ahead a little bit, a bit fast there. How can hope help you? I'd love you just to type in something right now based on what you've heard so far. The idea of creating that picture of your best self. Who might that be? The idea of thinking about obstacles that might get in your way, and what you can do about that. So just think for yourself about how hope can help you. We know that hope predicts lower measures of depression and anxiety, but not vice versa. Lower measures of depression and anxiety don't necessarily predict high levels of hope. So hope really is the independent variable here. It's the thing that we can directly manipulate or change to support an increase in, a lowering of outcomes like depression and anxiety. We know that it predicts academic achievement, surprisingly, better than intelligence, having high levels of hope. It predicts increased productivity in ourselves, and it predicts improved health overall compared to having lower levels of hope. Increased levels of hope also predict improved quality of life, QOL. So a number of different positive outcomes that arise from being able to build our own levels of hope in daily life. Let's turn now to efficacy. Efficacy is one of my favourites. I wrote my postgraduate thesis on self-efficacy back in the day, and it's a central concept for all of us in being able to do and achieve and get done what needs to be done in our lives. So, when we talk about efficacy, we really need to pause and refer to the work of Albert Bandura, who developed social cognitive theory about 35 years ago. I'm not going to go into the theory itself in depth. However, Bandura does talk about the development of efficacy, and he identified 4 pathways to efficacy. The first one of those is verbal persuasion or self-talk. This is important because when we're feeling down and deflated and depressed and flat and overwhelmed and tired and fatigued, reflect for a moment on the way we talk to ourselves. We tend to talk to ourselves quite negatively. What does that do? Well, of course, it reinforces where we are. It reinforces that sense of flatness and feeling down. Verbal persuasion, the way we talk to ourselves, can have a significant impact on our level of efficacy. Physiological or feeling states is the second one of these. In other words, don't diss your feelings. Listen to what you're feeling. If we go all the way back to resilience, the definition of resilience was to do with recovering from what's happened in the past before moving forward again. And this is important because often when we're feeling depressed and flat and de-energized, we develop this sense of, I've just got to push on. I've got to keep pushing forward. Now that's admirable in many ways, the idea of keeping on pushing forward. But true resilience comes when we listen to our feelings, when we listen to the emotion that we're experiencing, and we acknowledge that to ourselves. And we then take the time to do something to recover. We do something to build ourselves up again before we take that next step forward. So simply pushing on regardless is not necessarily the best strategy here. Thirdly, vicarious experiences or role model experiences are important to us in developing efficacy. That sense of being able to do what we can do. So role models are all those people around us that we, the people that look to us like ourselves. So I'm not talking here about heroes or people that we might really look up to and admire. I'm talking about role models, people that feel like we could emulate what they do. So your role models might be people that you work with. They might be your neighbours, they might be family members, they might be friends, people just like you doing things just like you. But when we look at what they're doing it in a way that leads us to think, I would love to do it that way too. And it's important for us to pay attention to that, because that forms one of the pins of self-efficacy development. And the final one, of course, is mastery experiences, which means the things that we actually do. And that's very important because it reminds us that we have to do something. To develop self-efficacy, we must actually do something, even if it's small. And that's important, that when we're talking about moving forwards and recovering our resilience and recovering ourselves and recapturing who we are and the joy and passion that we have for life, we don't need to do it all at once. We don't need to take a gigantic step forward. A small step is all that's necessary initially, because that small step represents the beginning of a mastery experience, the beginning of being able to move forward again. So 4 pathways for developing self-efficacy: mastery experiences, doing things, having success at that, and being honest with ourselves about that success, even if it's very, very small. If your experience of self-efficacy today was that you cleared your email inbox by lunchtime instead of 5 o'clock this afternoon, be honest with yourself about that. That was a win for today. Vicarious experiences, paying attention to the people around us, looking at what we might be able to model from people around us, paying attention to our internal experience, our emotions and our feelings, and choosing to use those internal experiences as a nudge to take time to recover and do something to recover before moving forwards again. And then thinking carefully about the way we speak to ourselves, our own self-talk. And if you pay attention and you notice that you're engaged in harsh or critical or unkind or uncompassionate self-talk, resolve to change that. Resolve to start speaking to yourself differently. Nothing will change positively by negative self-talk, but speaking to ourselves more kindly may seed the beginning of an increase in self-efficacy. So, sorry folks, the slide advance is a little tetchy here. What can you do? Well, first, be encouraging and kind to yourself and of course to other people. Most of us find that we're able to be encouraging and kind to people around us, but when it comes to ourselves, we take a little more of a harsh view. We tend to beat up on ourselves a little more. We tend to expect more of ourselves than we do of the people around us. Take the time to be kind to yourself. Be encouraging to yourself. If you've had a small win, a really little win, tell yourself that. Describe it as a win to yourself. Acknowledge the progress that you made compared with the day before or the week before, no matter how small that might seem. Think about this. What feeling in yourself or your body do you most downplay? What's the feeling that you most push to one side when you're experiencing it? Is it pride in your achievements? Is it a sense of self-confidence? Is it a sense of, I need to stop, I need to de-stress, I need some time out, I need to walk away for 5 minutes? What is it that you most downplay in your own life? And now I'm going to invite you to consider, if you don't downplay that, what opportunities might open up for you. If you start to attend more to that particular feeling that's in your mind right now, what might change for you? Pick a role model for yourself, or pick several. So not an idol or an inspiration, as I said, not someone that we look up to who is so incredible and so amazing and really does inspire us, but not someone that we feel like we could be like day to day. Pick that role model, pay attention to them, Look at what they do. Look at how they manage challenging situations. Learn from that person and seek to find ways to replicate in your own life the strategies that that person is using in their lives. And if you want to develop self-efficacy for yourself, if you want to have that mastery experience, set a stretch goal for yourself. Set a goal that requires you to work a little bit harder than you normally might. It doesn't need to be massive, and when I say stretch goal, I'm not talking about something that's so complex or so difficult that you're going to need to marshal all your resources to do it, and even then you may not have a good chance of achieving it. Something that's just out of reach for you at the moment, something that you can't easily accomplish, but is still possible for you. Set that goal for yourself and start working on it. And if you're already doing that, then kudos to you, because you now have the pool of experiences that you need to begin building mastery experiences. Pay attention to all of those things that you do and see what you can learn about yourself. I'll share with you a mastery experience I had and how ridiculously insignificant it is, but how we can turn these things into positives. My windscreen washer pump in my car wasn't working properly, and I was getting ready to take it to the shop, and I thought, I'm gonna have a look at this myself. I rang my son, who's an engineer, and I said, and he has the same type of car as me. I said, what do you reckon? He said, it's easy. You just do this, do this, do this. Yeah, it's easy for you. You've worked on cars for the last 10 years. But anyhow, so I got under the front of my car. Lo and behold, that little sucker was right there. And in a matter of moments, I had it pulled off. I had the new one put back on. Everything worked. Ridiculous thing, a $20 washer pump that I did myself in the driveway. But the boost I got of self-efficacy from that, of feeling like I've just fixed something on my car, lasted for days and days and days. The more of those we have, the more of those we can reflect on, the more we can speak to ourselves positively like that, the more we're building up our sense of self-efficacy, which, remember, is one of those key components of psychological capital, the pool of resources that we bring to deal with challenging situations in our lives. Oops. Let's turn now to resilience. Just a reminder that when we're talking about resilience, we're talking about both recovery and moving forward again, but doing one before the other. Resilience is not the relentless pushing on even when we're desperately ill or injured. Resilience is the compassionate practice of allowing ourselves to recover before we move forward again. So, things that you can do to build resilience for yourselves. Set a vision. Create a vision for yourself. There is no right or wrong way to create a vision, but one of the most useful ways to do it is literally to picture it. It's a vision, after all. Picture it. And one of my favorite ways to do it is imagine that I'm standing on a timeline. So right now I'm standing on April 26, 2021. And from this position on the timeline, I can either look over my shoulder to times in the past, or I can look forward out there to times in the future. Look out to a point in the future, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. And start to create a picture for yourself of what you want your life to look like in that time. What do you want things to look like? How will you be? What will your successes have been between now and then? What will the strengths be that you're drawing on to get there? What are the values that you have, the values that you hold on to that will show up in your life as you're reaching for that vision? Take the time to create that picture for yourself. Secondly, take time to care for yourself. The principles of lifestyle medicine: activity, exercise, good nutrition, sleep, Did I mention sleep? Don't forget sleep. Another very important one is sleep. Sleep is one of the most overlooked elements of good health we're finding in the 21st century. Take the time to make sure you're getting good quality, uninterrupted, restful sleep. Be careful about substance use. Tobacco, of course, we're going to say don't touch it at all. Alcohol, we're going to say, you know, the overwhelming evidence suggests that alcohol probably isn't that great for us. So be very careful and judicious about its use. Take time to get out in nature, even if that means sitting in a garden, sitting in a park. One of the interesting pieces of research I read recently was, or showed that people experienced a mood improvement simply from looking at an image of a forest. They didn't even have to be there. Just looking at an image improved mood. So take the time to engage in those practices of fundamentally looking after ourselves. For most of us who are doing the work that we're doing, we are the toolkit. We're not like builders or car mechanics who have literally a set of tools, and if they're not doing so well, they can say to someone, "Hey, can you step in for me today? All my tools are over there." If you're working in healthcare, you are the toolkit, and so that toolkit, of course, needs to be looked after. Practice mindful attention to the present. Mindfulness, of course, is getting a lot of attention recently. Mindful attention to the present is really about noticing when we're regretting things in the past, noticing when you can see me signaling over my shoulder to the timeline here, noticing when we're becoming fearful about things in the future and drawing our attention back into this present moment and attending to what we have right now. The great antidote to both, it's a great antidote to both fear and regret. And spend time connecting with people. Build connections, even though sometimes we feel like making connections with people is another thing that we have to do, another thing that drains us. We know that having connections with people, it doesn't need to be a large number of connections, but it needs to be significant connections. People who matter to us, people who mean something to us, people who we mean something to, become very important ways of helping us to maintain our resilience. And then finally, optimism. Having that hope in the unknown future. What are the things that you can do to build optimism for yourself? Here's one, we talked about this already. Pay attention to successes that you have, no matter how small they are. Don't let a little success get past you. Remember, hope is about an expectancy about an unknown future. So we need to marshal all the resources we can about the known present in order to be able to prepare ourselves for an unknown future. And one of the ways that we can do that is pay attention to those successes that we're having, no matter how small they are. This second one is one of my favorites. Separate the things you can control from the things that you can't control. And this is straight out of the playbook of the Stoic philosophers who emerged in ancient Rome in about the 3rd century BC. Discern what you can't control and simply put it to one side. There is literally no point wasting effort on things that you cannot control. Instead, focus your efforts on the things that you can control. Because when you focus efforts on things that you can control, you develop again that sense of being able to navigate unknown circumstances and unknown times. Take time to envision the best future. When we talked about hope at the start, we were talking about best self, so you when you're at your finest. When we talk about optimism, we're talking about the best future. What does that whole picture look like? Not just you yourself, but you in your context. What do things look like then? So three concrete steps that you can take towards developing optimism. Pay attention to the successes that you're having. Most importantly, separate what you can and can't control and focus on, of course, on the things that you can. And then finally, envision that best future for yourself. This is a question I often get asked: what's the difference between hope and optimism? Optimism is essentially global. It's a state that we experience. It's a feeling that we have, you know, a sense of the future is going to be okay. Even though the future is unknown to me, I have a sense of being able to move into it with some degree of confidence. Hope, on the other hand, is an action. Hope is a set of things that we do to build in our sense that sense of efficacy and capacity and ability to both do things and envision how we might be in the future. You might, I'm sure you do, know the old example of the glass half full. We talk about, you know, a glass half full, and for some people they look at it in that way, half full, and some people look at it half empty, and that's often used as the distinction between, for example, optimism and pessimism. But that example misses, to my mind anyway, one key point, and that's this: the glass is refillable. It doesn't matter whether it's half full, half empty. Doesn't matter whether it's overfull. Doesn't matter whether it's spilled. Doesn't matter whether it's completely empty. It's refillable. And hope represents the steps we take to refill that glass. All right, here's a little activity for us to do. So you'll have this on your Menti screen. You'll be asked to rate each of those things on a scale for yourself right now. So think about, these are the principles of lifestyle medicine that I was talking about just a few minutes ago. Have a think about how you're doing on each of those right now, and quickly don't overthink it, just give yourself a quick rating, and we'll see things start to pop up here, and we'll get a bit of a collective picture of how people are doing. This will probably take just a moment or two to start happening. There we go. Sometimes I'll just wait a minute, because sometimes there we go. So one of the really encouraging signs is that social support. Look at how well people are generally rating social support for themselves, and that's fantastic, because connection is one of the best predictors of mental health and well-being. What's the next one after that? The next one would be leisure. Practicing leisure activities, great, and those two often go together, don't they? Leisure and social support. And if we have a look at the lower ones, diet, exercise, activity, and of course this is what we've seen through the past 15 months. We've seen, because people have been largely at home, and lifestyles have been changed very significantly in some ways. We're seeing people experiencing significant challenges in managing those three things in particular: diet, exercise, and activity. Completely unscientific poll that we've just conducted here, but it does give some indication collectively of how we're all doing. And the really encouraging takeaway I want to reiterate is the degree to which people are feeling like social support is functioning well in their lives, and that's a really compelling indicator of how things will go for you. All right. If you want some more on resilience, this is a terrific book I've just screenshotted this from a I should say, from a bookseller online. You'll find this is a very easy book to get hold of. It's only about a year and a half old, and you'll see touching on some things that we've focused on tonight: mindfulness, empathy, you know, that capacity to recognise feeling and to sit with that feeling, and of course the practice of gratitude. And if you want to dig even further into resilience, I can recommend this book. It's several years old, as you can see, published 2003. Terrific book on learning about how to find your own sources for strength and build resilience in yourselves. Both of those highly recommended. Lots of other resources as well. And Erica shared some resources just before this, which will also be able to factor in for you in building resilience for you. So, love you to share something right now. Just whatever you want, just a word or two. You can share more than one thing if you like. What's something that you're taking away from this evening? Something that's a little bit sticky for you. Lovely, the acronym stuck, HERO, and we can all be a hero. Yeah, I love that. Look at that. Hope can be developed. I'm so glad that someone's nominated that as something important. All of those things can be developed: hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. The really important takeaway is that these things are not out of our reach. Recover first, yes, thank you for highlighting that. A compassionate view of resilience. Yeah, be kind to yourself. Glad people are picking up on the self-compassion there. Resilience is not about just pushing on regardless. It's not about pushing forward at all costs. It's about taking the time. Yeah, there's another one, recovery before resilience. It's about taking the time to rest, to repair, to recognise what we need to do to re-strengthen ourselves before we move forwards again. So I'm really glad that part in particular has stuck for you this evening. All right, well, Mel, let me hand back to you.
Sure, thank you. Just had a couple of quick questions. We're running nearly on time, nearly time to finish, but a couple have come through. So what should I do if I have any of those warning signs is one of the questions that was asked.
Oh yeah, okay. Great question. And the warning signs really mean that we're getting towards the the existence of the warning signs really means that you're probably beginning to reach a fairly low ebb, and that may be time to also recognise the benefit in reaching out to someone professionally. So we focus this evening on talking about things that you can do yourselves, do in your own life, ways that you can develop hope and efficacy and resilience and optimism. If you're starting to notice some of those warning signs, it's a little like the engine check light coming on in your car. Time to really start saying, maybe I need to reach out to someone for some additional support here.
Great, thank you. And another one came in was, what should I do if a friend is struggling? How do we support them?
Oh yeah, another nice question. And look, be a friend. Be a friend to that person. Say what you're seeing. And it's important to frame that in what I would call observational, not judgmental terms. So when I say observational, take a moment to think about what you're seeing in your friend or colleague. Are you seeing, do they look tired? Do they look drawn? Are they starting to be away from work more often? Are they less engaged? Are they skipping social functions? Whatever it might be, find a moment, a private moment, to come alongside that person and say, This is what I've noticed. I've noticed, you know, normally you're like this. The last little while, I've seen this happen. And then ask the all-important question, is everything okay? Is everything okay for you? And all that does is open the door for the person. The person may not want assistance, which is absolutely fine, but it's a nice thing to do, to crack the door open for someone so that they can have an opportunity to share how they're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And the last one was, can you explain more about needing a why, about the whole why?
Oh yeah, so the needy. So look, the why I think is just yeah, look, just a valuable reminder that if we set about simply developing resilience because we're told it's a good thing, then it may or may not be long lasting for us. It's a little analogous to saying, well, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to go to the gym. Now that's a good thing to do. There's no question about that. You know, getting your body to a healthy weight, becoming more physically active, building some strength, some cardiovascular fitness. No one would argue that that's not a good thing to do. It is a good thing to do. But if we don't have sitting underneath that a really compelling reason for doing that we can articulate to ourselves, then the risk we run is that we'll engage in that briefly because we've been told we should, or because we think we should, or because it seems like a good idea, and then something else will happen and it will fall away. So taking the time to connect with that reason, the why, gives us a really powerful ongoing motivation for remaining committed to the development of these things. If we know why we're making ourselves resilient, if we know why we're building psychological capital, I want to do that because being able to support my team as they manage a really challenging, you know, rollout of some sort. For example, I'm just picking that one out of the air. Becomes a reason for building up our own resilience and pool of resources. But if we just say to ourselves, oh, I went to this presentation on resilience and they said, you know, you should get more resilient, then that may not stick.
Great. Okay, well, we're going to end on that note. Thank you so much for this evening, Simon. There's been some great information and tactics that we can all utilise. So thank you, really appreciate it. And I will take this time as well just to mention that we are having a GP long lunch at Glenworth Valley on the 29th of April, and we'll do some wellbeing sessions in that as well. So that's been all initiatives from the wellbeing team, and yeah, we invite everyone to attend that as well. So thank you for this evening. Thank you also, Erica, for being here with us tonight, and really appreciate everyone's time. Have a lovely evening, everybody, and good night.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you.
Good night.